Hello, good morning, children. Welcome back to the class of biology. Today we'll start with a new chapter, chapter number 7, diversity in living organisms. Look at these pictures. You can see grass and the large eucalyptus tree. Two different types of cows. You can see two boys. You can see a microorganism and the large whale. What do these pictures reveal? Diversity. The earth is full of organisms of various shapes and sizes. The largest phylum of animal kingdom alone contains over 1,000,000 species. That means we find a variety of organisms starting from a small microbe to the gigantic one. There are varieties of plants, right from small grasses to tall eucalyptus tree. You can see that this variety which we find in living organisms is termed as diversity. Now, when we look at this picture, we can come to know that grass is very small in size and a eucalyptus tree is very large. Though there is variation, but their function is same. When we compare these two kinds of cow, the one you can see here is the Desi cow that is found in India. The second one is the Jersey cow. Now, when we compare these two cows, their breeds are different. When we talk about the picture of these two boys, are they alike? Do they have characteristics which are same? I am talking about the physical appearances. Do their nose look alike? Is the hair color the same? If we talk about the color of the eye, that too differs. When we talk about the other physical parameters like height, weight, they also differ. When we compare the two organisms, like the ones that are microbes, maybe bacteria, fungi or virus, and a blue whale, if we compare the characteristics, then we come to know that there is a wide variety of difference between the two. So, this all shows the variety that is found in the living organisms, including plants and animals. Biodiversity. Now, bio means living. So, let us see the diversity in the living organisms. The variety of animals and plants living in a given geographical area is called biodiversity of that geographical area. When we talk about plants, then their biodiversity or their geographical area may be land. When we talk about the aquatic plants and animals, then their biodiversity is the river or the water bodies. So, it depends upon the geographical area within which the animal or plant lies. Now, we have seen a wide classification of animals. Now, why there is a need for a system of classification? As we saw in this figure, that there are different types and kinds of species around us. So, you might have learned about the classification of plants and animals in your earlier classes. So, here the question arises is why there is a need for a system of classification. Let us see why. Because of the huge diversity in living beings, it becomes very difficult task to study each of them one by one. Now, when we talk about cows, there are a variety of cows. There are a variety of animals. If we try to compare a tiger and a cow, or just say when we compare two boys, then we come to know that there is something common between them. But what if we compare a boy or a human being and a monkey? Now see, again we'll find some of the characteristics which match. Same way, when we talk about cats and when we talk about the tiger, though they are different, but when we go deep into the classification, we come to know that they belong to the same family, that is the cat family. So, to make their study easier, animals and plants were categorized in groups and subgroups. So, this classification of groups and subgroups made it very easy to study the animals as well as the plants. Thus, the system of classification started. Now, what is the basis of this classification? On what basis are these animals classified? There are various characteristics on the basis of which these animals and plants are classified into certain groups and subgroups. Now, we'll talk about this classification of these subgroups and groups in the later chapters. Here is just the introduction about what is this classification and why it is done and on what basis it is done. The first factor which leads or which is the basis of the classification of the organisms is the presence or absence of nucleus in cells. Now again we will have to go back to the lesson, the fundamental unit of life, the tissues and all those lessons that we have learned earlier, because on the basis of that knowledge only you will be able to understand this lesson well. So in that lesson we had learned about the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes. So let's come back to those topics once again. When we talk about the presence and absence of the nucleus in cells, we talk about the organisms which have the cells without the well defined nucleus, and the organisms which do not have a well developed nucleus are termed as the prokaryotes, and the ones which have the cells with well defined nucleus are called eukaryotes. Now this you must know that the presence of nucleus and membrane bound organelles gives better efficiency to cells. So on the basis of that we are able to classify the organisms, that whether they are prokaryotic or whether they are eukaryotic, and so we are able to identify them and we are able to study more about them on the basis of their characteristics. You can see here in the figure, you have already done in the chapter, but let us see here. The label diagram is given about the labeling of this eukaryotes and prokaryotes. In this chapter you don't have to learn this structure, but this is just a base in order to understand and revise the terms. That here you can see the well developed nucleus in the eukaryotic cell, whereas in the prokaryotic cell you cannot see a well developed nucleus, but you can see the presence of the nucleolide and the cell wall. The second basis of classification is the number of cells in an organism. Now, on the basis of this, the animals are classified as unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Again, this is the revision of the chapter that we had done before. We had already talked about the unicellular and multicellular organisms. Let us once again revise it, that those organisms having single cell are termed as unicellular organisms. Uni means one. So, the organisms that have single means one cell, those are termed as unicellular organisms. Now, in them the single cell is responsible for carrying out all necessary functions to maintain life. Now, just think about ourselves. We are multicellular organisms and we need a number of cells to perform the basic functions of life. Whereas if we talk about the unicellular organisms like amoeba, it performs all the functions on its own with just one cell. Okay, let's move on to the multicellular organisms. Those organisms having more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. Now, because of the more number of cells, there can be some division of labor to gain more efficiency. Now, this division of labor also we had talked about when we were talking about tissues. When we learned about tissues, we learned about the division of labor and how the cells, they work with the help of grouping. When they group together, they are able to perform a function in a better way. So, when we talked about the organs and the organ systems and how they form our human body, not only human beings but even other multicellular organisms which have this group of cells that work together and help to perform a specific function. Here you can see three organisms, that is the amoeba, the paramecium and the euglena. Now, these are the unicellular organisms that perform their function with the number of cells present, that is the less number of cells, or you can say the unicellular organisms. And here you can see the figure of the multicellular organisms cell that have a number of organisms. This we have already learned. And when we talk about the multicellular organisms, it includes plants as well as animals. Even we talk about the other microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. The third basis of classification is the mode of nutrition. Now, when we talk about mode of nutrition, again we come back to what kind of food do they eat or how do they prepare their food. Now, this you have learned in your class 7 and 8 about the mode of nutrition. We had talked about the autotrophs, the heterotrophs, the saprophytes and the different kinds of organisms. So, let's revise it again. When we talk about autotrophs, we talk about the organisms that produce their own food. Now, when we talk about the one who make their own food, we are talking about green plants. All green plants are autotrophs and they have a pigment called chlorophyll in these green plants which facilitates photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis, as you know, is a process by which plants make their own food in the presence of sunlight. A chlorophyll pigment that is present in them, carbon dioxide, water, and thus they are able to make food on their own. When we talk about heterotrophs, heterotrophs are the organisms that are dependent on either plants or animals for their food. So, they are termed as heterotrophs. They don't have chlorophyll. Now, when we talk about ourselves, we are heterotrophs and we have to depend on plants for our food, and we don't have a pigment called chlorophyll in our body. Just imagine if we have chlorophyll, then we may be able to make our own food, and we have to no further depend on plants for our food. But when we talk about nature, nature in itself has made a balance in which the plants and animals have to depend on each other, and this dependency only keeps a balance in the nature. And if there is any imbalance, then that may cause calamity. All animals, fungi, certain bacteria and protozoa, these all belongs to the group of heterotrophs. Here you can see the process of photosynthesis, on the basis of which the plants make their own food in the presence of carbon dioxide, water from the soil, and they release they release oxygen and produce energy. You can see this heterotrophs, this all kinds of animals, you can see birds, you can see trees or certain plants that are not green in color, that depend on plants for their food. And here is a picture of the certain microorganisms like fungi and bacteria that are heterotrophs. Okay, the next basis of classification is the level of organization in the body. Now, what do we mean by level of organization? In multicellular organisms which are small, like Hydra, here I will show you the figure of Hydra. It is a small multicellular organism. In this particular group of cells are assigned a particular function, but in larger organisms, tissues group to form an organ, which in turn make an organ system. This we have learned in class 3, how cells they group together and form tissues, how the tissues they function together and form an organ, and how the organs they work together and form any organ system, and how these organ systems they co-function and they work together and they just regulate the functions of the human body. And you can see that the human beings, there are separate systems for performing specific tasks. Here you can see the figure of Hydra, and let us see here or compile what I said just now with an example. When we talk about cells, we talk about the function of the muscles. Now this particular cell or muscle, they combine together and they form tissues. So here you can see the muscles, they form the cardiac tissues, and this cardiac tissues they club together or they function together and they regulate the function or form an organ, that is the heart. Now this heart, when it works along with the arteries and veins, along with the blood that is circulating in the body, then they form the vascular system, or you can say they form the circulatory system. And this, when it works together, it works in the human body or any organism. So this is all about the level of organization in the body and how the system works. So even not only in animals but even in larger plants, there is a separate root system for conduction of water and minerals. You might have learned about the function of xylem and phloem in the previous chapter, and you had learned how the vascular bundles that are formed. You had learned in the chapter of tissues that how the xylem and phloem helps in the conduction of water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plants. Even we have learned the function of the leaf in the process of photosynthesis, and how the flowers they help in the process of reproduction. So this is exemplified with the help of the mode of the organism, means how they work in plants along with animals. So here you can see the phloem and xylem and their function and how they help in the mode of transportation of water and minerals. Here you can see the figure of leaf and how it helps in the process of photosynthesis. And this, as you have already learned in your lower classes about reproduction in plants with the help of flowers. So this is the cross section, or this is the figure that shows you the different functions of the different parts of the plants which help in reproduction or which helps in different functions of the plants. So, compiling all this, we come to know that based on these characters, organisms can be further classified into various groups as well as subgroups. So, now what is the further classification of these groups and subgroups that you can see just in a small figure. This is the taxonomic classification of a plant. You can see here it's in the hierarchical order. Hierarchy means it's in the form of the classification that is shown. So here you can see the species, the genus, family, order, class, phylum or division, kingdom and domain. Now when we start with a domain, then we say that it is a eukaryote, and again when we come to know its kingdom, then it is further classified and subclassified into the groups and subgroups. Now here I am not explaining the classification of corn, but I am just showing you the hierarchy, that how it is classified. So this would be useful for you to understand that the domain, the kingdom, phylum and division, the class, order, family, genus, and comes the species. So on the basis of this, any animal or plant is classified. Okay, now this classification we will be talking about it later on in the next video. Hope you have understood the basis of classification and you have understood that why the classification of plants and animals is performed or why it is done. If you have any doubt related to the introduction of this topic, please feel free to ask me. Thank you and have a nice day.